love Elvis, and why do some people care? Why can't some people get enough? Why doesn't anyone have? It's funny, Billy. Let me just ask you I want to introduce you to our audience in just a second. But let me ask you a question. Why is it that some people had enough of Elvis and some people can't get enough of Elvis? And why is it that some people don't care? And I need to know these questions. These are questions I have no answers to. You're the guy. You bring the answers.
Angela, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll say this, that for me, when I'm either all in on Elvis or all out, you can't dabble in Elvis. You're either completely there or completely out.
I will tell you, you're absolutely right.
There's a few people out there that are not Elvis fans, but you know what? I think most people that I talk to on some level are Elvis fans. And what I mean is they all know who Elvis is. That's first. Second, they recognize some genre or all genres of Elvis. And what I mean is he reinvented himself 3 times. They recognize the 50s, the black leather suit, the singer special, and then they recognize the jumpsuits.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they also recognize songs. I saw there's a band it's a family. It's brothers and sisters, and they're all relatively young. The name of the band is Lilac, and they play heavy metal type music and travel around. I think their parents are from, I'm gonna say Belgium. That may not be right, but they're somewhere in Europe, and they're over here playing and traveling and stuff. And the other day, I happened to click on a video and just watching them, and they were listening to Elvis while they were traveling between shows. They were headed to open for Loverboy. So the video where they're opening for Loverboy, they're listening to Elvis on the way to that show.
Remarkable.
And just loved it, And so the thing, Elvis transcends time. He transcends, and what I mean is the thing about music for most people is music brings you back to a time in your life.
Yeah.
Elvis's music, especially the 50s stuff, is timeless.
Oh my God, sure. Absolutely.
As fresh as it was when I listened to it the first time in the 60s or 70s.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Well, you and I are contemporaries age-wise. I have a feeling that we're probably around the same age. I'm 62.
I'm 55.
So you're in the ballpark, brother. Yeah. You're close enough. They say close enough for government work.
That's right.
So I want to tell everybody who you really are.
Certainly.
You are a fascinating individual. As I said, I reached out to Billy Stallings about a year ago, and he blew me off because he was building hot dogs.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, this man I call him the king of YouTube, because you can't hardly go anywhere on YouTube without seeing the Spa Guy doing something or going somewhere, or some Elvis artifact, or a place where Elvis stood or had dinner or lunch. Billy Stallings has worked on pools and spas since he was just a young child. His father was a pool builder, spending some 40 years. And this young, industrious Billy Stallings, he learned how to craft and art these pools. And from a very, very young age, knee-high to a grasshopper, as they say in Tennessee, and that's really small.
Yeah.
Billy is also a musician. He began singing at an early age. He is a Christian recording artist and a country artist. He began singing and credits Elvis Presley with his ability to sing. We're going to talk about that in moments.
Okay.
Elvis records must have been a unique and you used the word earlier, timeless. It must have been a unique and timeless tool for you to learn from. And Elvis must have been an amazing teacher, Billy. Having been on tour with not only your own band, but even as a part of an Elvis tribute band. I believe you guys went to Denmark or the Netherlands.
Denmark, Netherlands, yeah.
Okay. And we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
But you are known worldwide as a Christian recording artist and country artist. You are also the Spa Guy. Just everybody knows you as the Spa Guy.
Yeah.
These days, you can find Billy, affectionately known as the Spa Guy, traveling the highways and byways of the U.S., making Elvis-themed videos. And after all these years, and after all is said and done, he is still enthusiastic for Elvis. He is I call him the super fan. You really are, brother. I'm an Elvis fan, but you are a super fan. And I got a couple surprises for you. I'm going to blow your mind with some stuff.
Okay.
We are proud here at Wrestling with the Future Podcast to welcome to our show the king of YouTube, the spa guy himself, Billy Stallings. How are you, my friend, my brother?
I am doing fantastic. How about you?
Brother, I'm going to tell you what, it's been a busy day, but I'm glad we got this together.
Yes, sir.
It came out at the 11th hour, but as all good things do, it came together just at the right time when it was supposed to happen. I will tell you, I'm gonna start right off. I'm gonna blow your mind right off the top. I've met Elvis twice.
Okay.
In fact, both times we were in Philadelphia. Both times I was introduced to him by Charlie Hodge. And after Elvis passed, Charlie and I talked about that. And Charlie gave me his TCB necklace.
Wow.
Took it off his neck. And I have that. I also have 2 signed Elvis albums that I may part with. I don't know. I may decide to gift one to a guy in Tennessee that builds hot tubs and spas.
Yes.
So let me ask you a question. Do you prefer the term spa, or is it a hot tub, or are they different?
They're the same thing. It's kind of like Kleenex.
Okay.
Spa and a hot tub are the same thing in my estimation. I call myself the spa guy because it's easy to remember, and I was in the bug business for a period of time, and I learned from a man that was very, very smart that you've got to be humble enough to be the bug man. And so when I started this company and was looking for a name, trying to decide something, I decided I was humble enough to be the spa guy. And I started making YouTube videos, hot tub related, where I did moves and repos, and I did how-tos. That's what drives my business. A big part of my business is hot tub parts online. I own Hot Tub Parts of America, which is we sell hot tub parts all over the world. And that's how I drive my businesses, with YouTube videos. Teach homeowners how to repair their tubs. They buy their parts from me and they repair their tubs. And that just led to doing Elvis stuff.
You're very fortunate because being the boss, you can kind of call your own shots and make your own hours. And I know what started for you as kind of like a fun avocation has now taken a life of its own. Initially, I remember watching your early videos, and you would travel locally in Tennessee to various, Elvis, of course, was from Tennessee, and spent a lot of time, doing little shows in places like Jefferson City. If you don't know Tennessee, you could sneeze and go through Jefferson City. Places like Rockwood, Cookville, Crossville. These are small towns along Route 41 that go straight into, I guess, Nashville and Memphis, really, all the way in.
It goes through them, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's I-40, actually.
Oh, I-40. I'm sorry. You're right. Well, I lived there for 15 years and still can't get it right.
Yeah.
I did. I actually lived in Rockwood and Harriman. In that little small area, Kingston area.
Yeah, I'm familiar. My daughter taught school in that area.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you know the area well. So, and Elvis did a lot when he was starting out, did a lot of small, local shows and armories and high schools. And part of what you started out doing was retracing Elvis's footsteps.
Yes.
And I think is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment. Me as an Elvis fan, I don't know why I want to go to the places other than I'll say this. As a young fan, I became an Elvis fan at about 12 years old, which would have been close to the time of his death. I became a fan 76, 77 in that time frame. Mm-hmm. But back then there was no internet, there was no nothing like that. Basically, your Elvis connection was listening to records, reading the books that were out at the time. I did a book report in the 9th grade on Elvis. I saw the book actually this weekend. Somebody had it at Elvis Con. This is Elvis' birthday week this past week.
Yeah.
And I did that kind of stuff. So I had to imagine these stories. You know what I'm saying? Sure. I read the stories, but I had to imagine what they looked like. So there's something in me that makes me want to go to where those stories happened at to bring them to life for me. I take a camera with me and film it in such a way that it's like you're with me. And that's...
Well, let me ask you a question. That's a great place to ask you a question. The idea of this camera, was that initially the whole scope of the notion was to photograph video, or was it just to kind of get a feel for where he was and what he did? Was the camera an integral part of it, or did you just kind of like think about that later?
You know, I'm not smart enough to plan anything like that. I think the most real things and the most genuine things are organic. They just happen.
Sure.
I don't know why I film it like that. I just always have. There was no intent there. That's just what I did.
Yeah.
And somehow it works, and it's evidently different than most people are in front of the camera, looking at the camera, telling a story. I tell the story behind the camera, and you'll see me from time to time.
Yeah.
But generally, I do it from my perspective, where you're with me, and because I want you to feel like you're a part of what I'm doing. And people tell me that they do feel that.
And that's incredibly critical that people understand that. Your voice is so recognizable as the spa guy, and that you really don't need to see you. People who watch your videos know who you are. They know what you look like. It's not really necessary to see you, although, you know, as you just admitted, you pop up from time to time. One time that you popped up recently came to mind, where you were traveling with a buddy of yours, and you stopped along, I don't know what, it looked like a deserted highway somewhere, in search of a restaurant where Elvis, Gladys, and Vernon ate.
Yes.
And I believe you saw or were able to narrow down an area where there was a pink tile flooring in the midst of. You know what would you tell people that story, please?
That's my sidekick. He's got a YouTube channel, Globetrotting with Trey. His name is Trey Miller. He lives in Alabama. And Trey and I film together a lot. He films stuff on his own. He's actually an actor. You'll see him in a lot of TV shows and that kind of stuff, believe it or not. So Trey and I were doing the June Juanico story, and June was from Biloxi, Mississippi. And so we traveled from Biloxi to New Orleans, and that was where Elvis and June and Gladys and Vernon stopped to eat on their way to New Orleans. That was incidentally, that location is very, very, very close, within just miles of where Jane Mansfield was killed. Same highway, same road. She would have driven right by there, or she wasn't driving, but she passed away on her way to New Orleans. But
I'll tell you something funny about that you mentioned Jane Mansfield's passing. I know a guy that was with her the night before she died.
Really?
He was a professional wrestler named Eddie Graham, and he was with her that morning, actually, the night before and into that morning. They parted ways. He went back to Florida, and she ended up dead, basically.
Yeah,
dead.
That's an interesting story. And her story,
really
I do Elvis videos, but I do other stuff too.
Sure.
And she played there. She was making appearances at Gus Stevens' restaurant in Biloxi, which Elvis and June went to Gus Stevens years and years before this. You know, this is 50. She was, I believe she died in the 60s, going from memory. And but the thing that I didn't know about Jane that I think is interesting about the story is I always pictured her driving a car and accidentally driving under the back of a truck. In fact, there's a bar now that you see on the back of big rigs that they call the Mansfield Bar for that very reason, because
Yeah.
she drove under the truck. They put that there to prevent that from happening. But Jane was not driving. It was actually Gus Stevens' daughter's fiance was driving, and she was sitting in the front along with her fiance, which was also an attorney. Her three children were in the back seat. They were not killed. They were the three people in the front seat. So that's a thing that's left out of that story that I think is interesting, that the children were with them.
Yeah, interesting enough, one of those children is Melissa Hargitay from the television show SVU.
That's right.
Yeah.
She's a very accomplished actress. That's right.
Yeah, quite an accomplished. And we do, you know, you mentioned having a friend that's an actor. We've had a lot of actors on the show, a lot. In fact, recently just had Jim Fife from The Frighteners and Dark Shadows was here with us. We also have, and this is a special interest to you, I think, and you might want to come back to this one, Billy. I've got Pete Wilcox coming on February 4th. Pete Wilcox, if you don't know the name, was called America's TV Elvis. He was the Elvis on Charles in Charge, Murphy Brown, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, the Sandy Duncan Show.
Wow.
Yeah, and he will be here. He's 78 years old, and he will be here on February 4th to talk about his career as Elvis. And interestingly enough, his father was a record executive for RCA Records, who was one of the people who signed to Elvis.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I really want to do that show. I want to do that show. But let's get back to the spa guy.
Yes.
So you travel extensively now. You traveled locally, but you travel an awful lot, even flying to Las Vegas, to California. You seem to be marking out now for this photo of you at the gate in Palm Springs. I love that picture, by the way.
Yes. That was in LA. That was the Hillcrest house.
Oh, Hillcrest. Okay.
Yeah, I got in the Hillcrest house in LA, and that's me out front in the gate. Now, I got called from the honeymoon house that you're talking about in Palm Springs.
Yes.
Last year, they actually called me and asked me to come film it because it was for sale and they thought it might get sold and torn down or something. Sadly, I was not able to get there, and it did get sold. So they're actually having an auction, I think, this week. I think the 17th. Today is the 12th. So they're auctioning all things in the house. So I still may try to go. I had it set up I didn't make it in 2020. Mm-hmm. I normally go to Vegas every October and go to LA and, film that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Last year we didn't because everything's shut down. It makes it hard to travel and hard to deal with people.
Well, Billy, are there still Elvis artifacts in this home? And when you travel to places like that, do you find relics left behind?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's Elvis artifacts in the home, but they had collected paintings and those kinds of things that were of Elvis in the home.
Gotcha.
So I think they're going to get rid of those kinds of things. But now the bed from the Hillcrest house, that house was sold by Elvis furnished. So the original furniture was in the house. Now, whether there's any today, I don't know. Yeah. But John Daly, in fact, I just saw John Daly just a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. I'm in Memphis right now. I'm working on a project.
Sure.
But John Daly sold the Hillcrest bed, and I think he shipped it to, I think it went to UK. I think it got shipped to England.
Right.
But he actually had the bed out of that house in his possession for a period of time. I'm mixing two things.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm mixing two things. The bed out of the honeymoon house, I believe. I keep saying Hillcrest, and I'm meaning to say honeymoon.
Right.
But
the honeymoon house, the one located in Palm Springs, correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, in recent years, I should say, not recently, but in recent years, it's my understanding that Larry Geller was given entrance to the house to have kind of a sit around and BS about Elvis night. Do you know anything about that?
I don't, and I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, I know that they use the house for special events. You could rent it for pool parties, and you could do those kinds
Really?
of things there. Yes.
Isn't that kind of cheesy though? To
Well,
think about it.
I would not. The thing that, and this is all personal preference. Now, it doesn't mean I'm right, but I don't want to walk into Elvis's house and see pictures of Elvis, because Elvis wouldn't have pictures of himself in his house. Very
Of
much
course.
like
Absolutely.
Vernon's house, which is right here beside Graceland.
Yeah.
There was a doctor and a doctor's wife that owned it. She'd like to do paintings, and her paintings were very good. But the house
Sure.
was full of paintings of Elvis. And I don't know, I would want it to look like it did when Elvis lived there. That's the way
Yeah.
I would decorate it. But I think
Sure.
that's just a preference thing. I'm not mad because they did that, but it seems odd to me.
Billy, as a fan and as a guy who appreciates the history and the stories, particularly the stories, you don't have a full appreciation for the history without the stories. And because people get older and because people's memories fade, stories die or they get misinterpreted. One of the things that I like about what you're doing is preserving the stories from the people that are still around to tell those stories. And as an Elvis fan, and I consider myself a fan, as well as somebody who met him and who knew some of the quote Memphis Mafia. I hate that term, by the way. I really don't like that term. But I do appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to archive these stories, to preserve them. What for you was the quintessential Elvis fan moment? What story were you able to tell or preserve that means the most to you personally?
All right. Well, there's a few of them, but I'll tell you one that I filmed recently. There's these moments where you get something and you get back in your vehicle and you go, I cannot believe that just happened. That happens, and it's few and far between. I've had the opportunity, and I'll preface this with a couple of quick things. I've had the opportunity to go knock on people's doors and say, hey, did you know that Elvis has been at your house? And show them photos of Elvis in their house, and they had no idea that things like that ever happened. So I've been able to do that quite a few times. But one thing that comes in mind, I was recently filming, you mentioned that Elvis traveled a lot. In the early days, in 54 and 55 and early 56, he toured a lot. 56 is when he started doing movies and when they quit touring so much because he became so famous that the tours got further apart. But before that, it was go, 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 go.
Oh,
he
God,
played
yeah.
18 different places in Arkansas. So I had a period of time when my wife was out of town, and I had a stretch of time where I could go to Arkansas. So I set out to go to all 18 towns and see all the places that he played and see if I could find people that were interesting in those towns and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So I filmed in Texarkana, which I got great stuff in Texarkana.
Yes, you did.
I filmed in a little town called Hope, Arkansas.
Yes, you
And
did.
so the story that I think would be, and I hate to say this is the story of all stories, but I couldn't believe that this happened. This was in Hope, Arkansas. And there was two places that he played in Hope. One of them was in the city hall, and it was an auditorium upstairs in City Hall, which is no longer City Hall. It's an old building now, and Clips Audio actually has they don't own it, but they are over it. They basically, if anybody knows what Clips is, they're very, very high end stereo speakers and pro audio and that kind of stuff, real high end. That's built in Hope.
Sure.
And so they take the museum guy that actually is over his legacy, if you will. The auditorium is part of their thing. So I got to go in there and film with him and talk about the auditorium, which looks almost exactly like it did, with the exception of the stage is deeper than it was. They added to the front of it. But when you go back and look at the photographs, it's identical other than that addition. The chairs, I mean, it's basically the same room. So that was first.
Yeah.
Then I went to a place that was a giant metal building. The front part of it was enclosed back then. The back part of it was a horse arena. Same roof, but the horse arena. And he left from there this particular day that I'm talking about, and with the first pink Cadillac, and a lot of people don't know there was two.
Yes, there were.
Headed back to Texarkana, and the car caught on fire in Fulton and burned to the ground. So that day, he was invited to go to a person's house. So I was there in hope. I had filmed those two things, and it was a time of day where if I tried to go to the next town, I was going to run out of daylight. So I was trying to find something else to film there before I went, so I could, I've got a couple more hours. Let me see what else I could find here. So I started researching, and I found two photographs. I found the photograph of Elvis laying on a couch, and I found the photograph of Elvis standing in a kitchen with who I thought was Bill Black, the bass player. It turned out to be Jim Ed Brown. And another young lady, and you could see watermelon sitting on the kitchen counter.
Yeah.
So I started researching that, and it turned out that he was invited to a watermelon party at a young lady named Laura Mae Mitchell's house. So I thought, I wonder, there's no chance that Laura Mae Mitchell is still with us, but maybe I can figure out where the house was.
Right.
And do that. So I start searching. I find Laura Mae's married name. Then I keep searching. I find an address. So I go, we'll see. So I drive to the address.
Yeah.
And when I pulled up in the Gray Ghost, I left it running because I have a dash cam that runs all the time. Mm-hmm. In case I get run off, at least I have something to show and say, hey, I at least made an attempt, So I pull up, I leave the truck running, I grab the camera, I hit record. And when I don't want somebody to know I'm filming them exactly, because I don't want them to freak out, I have the camera that'll flip the thing out. I'll flip it around backwards and push it in. So it's not quite so big, let's just say.
Yeah, sure.
So I grab it, I flip the thing around, I hit record, and I walk up, and there's a lady sitting on the front porch. And I said, "Are you Laura Mae Mitchell?" She said, "Yes, I am." I said, "Laura Mae, was Elvis at your house when you were a teenager?" She said, "Yes, he was." I said, "Well, where is that house?" She said, "This house right here."
Yeah. You're in front of it.
Boom, that blew my mind. She took
Brother, it blew my mind too. I watched that episode, Billy. I got to tell you something. You have to forgive me. It was a what I call a holy shit moment.
Yeah.
It was one of those holy shit moments.
Yeah.
That the one not only do you have the right house, but the woman is sitting there, and she lets you in, and she shows you a tour, and she brings you into her little office, and there's Elvis all over the place with the original photo, by the way.
That's right.
Of
and
Jim
a photo
Brown.
of her with Elvis I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Just to prove that she was with Elvis.
Absolutely.
I could not have written it and said, hey, let's do this, and made it any better than that.
I'm going to tell you something, brother. Sometimes, serendipity just takes over. And that was a moment of serendipity that, thank God, and I mean that literally, thank you, God, that you got it on video. That is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. That was preserved forever. So long after that, and I hope she lives to be 100, God bless her. But long after
she was very sharp, 87 years old, mind like
I was going to say she was sharp as a tack and knew where he played and knew that he was at the horse arena and knew that I think she said he played in the front part of the arena.
That's right.
Right, because that was one of my favorite episodes. I'm glad you mentioned it because I wanted to talk to you about it. There are a couple of things in that series that you did in Texarkana and Hope and that vicinity. One of the things that you talked about just moments ago was his pink Cadillac catching fire. And as you pointed out, there were, in fact, two pink Cadillacs. I want to talk to you about why it was important to you to narrow down the right place, the right area, off of that little bridge where they say the car came to a stop off the side of the road, off of this little, what was then probably just a one-lane road back in the day.
Yeah, well, it would have been it was Highway 67. They call it the Rock and Roll Highway, but it was a lot more narrow than today. The lanes were not as wide, but it was a 2-lane. But I don't know. I think for me, and look, I do this for selfish reasons. I want to know. I'm not doing it because I need, you know what I'm saying? I want to know what it looked like. And I just think that when you go back to a place like that and you can place yourself there, if you remember, I filmed in the daylight and in the nightlight.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you why the contrast.
But, well, because it happened in the middle of the night. So I wanted you to be able to see that. But the problem is in the middle of the night, you're very limited vision-wise because I can't light the area. So I wanted to go back there in the day and show you both directions.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And you're also putting people in Elvis's shoes, what he would have went through, what he would have saw.
Yeah.
You know, going from one gig to another. And Rock and Roll Highway, by the way, Highway 67, is where a lot of the acts used to travel back and because it was, my understanding, having listened to that episode, was that it was the most direct route between Memphis and was it Memphis and Florida?
Texas.
Texas. I'm sorry, Texas.
Yeah, because Texarkana, evidently, from what I can gather, is the guys would stay in Texarkana. Like they would go and they stay in Texarkana, go to Hope. They'd stay in Texarkana, go to Texas. So they kind of stayed there a lot in that same motel, and they would eat at that same little restaurant that I talk about in there. And I had someone call me recently from there, and he said that that where I said the hotel was is not exactly right. He said same intersection, but in a different spot. So the next time I go, he says that he's going to try to, he'll come, he's been there, he's 70. So he said, I can show you exactly where that was, which happens sometimes. You're going and trying to figure things out. I look at historic aerials, I look at all kinds of things. But sometimes you're speculating, and then people will contact you and go, "Hey, I know this, I know that." So I've got to go back to Texarkana to film in Texas. So when I go back, I've got a few things. He thinks he knows where the pink Cadillac may have been taken to, the junkyard. So we're going to investigate some things like that. Of course, I'm sure it's crushed and long gone, but
it had to be taken. I'll tell you what, it's interesting you're talking about, Elvis's cars. I have to tell you, 2 of them were found here in New Jersey.
Really?
Yeah. A 1974 Stutz Blackhawk was found in a junkyard, registered to Elvis A. Presley of Memphis, Tennessee. Funny. And the other one was, God almighty, it was, what do they call those cars? They don't even make them anymore.
It was a Lincoln, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
wasn't it Lincoln Mark?
I don't know if it was a Mark IV Limited.
Maybe a Mark IV.
I think it was the Mark IV Limited. It had a funky grill. It had like that kind of long, kind of remind me of the song Long Black Limousine. Yeah. But it had that long grill with that kind of like a Rolls Royce looking funky little grill in the front. But they found 2 cars here registered to Elvis. What a lot of people don't know, maybe you may not know it, you may come to New Jersey and find out, but Elvis had a piece of property here in New Jersey that was purchased by Merv Griffin that became the Resorts International Hotel Casino. Elvis owned a substantial amount of property in Atlantic City, New Jersey. A lot of people didn't know about.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. If you lived here, you knew.
Yeah, well, I've been to Atlantic City and filmed many times.
There's a lot here. There's an awful lot here. Let's talk about one of the places that I lived, actually, and some place you've been to a few times, Las Vegas. Yes. I want to talk to you about the intricacies, and this is a word I want to use with specificity, the intricacies of placing photos where they historically happened. Really important. It seems to be like I don't want to call it a quirk of yours, but maybe it is, but it's a good quirk. It's a good quirk to have.
It's proof is what it is.
What is it?
It's proof
It,
that
yeah,
he was there.
but the idea of matching up, and by the way, take this as a compliment, but there are a lot of people like ripping off what you do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are. Absolutely, there are.
And that's okay.
And to the point, but look, you're the trendsetter. You did it first. But you have this with great specificity. You go to a lot of trouble, brother, and spend a lot of your own money to make sure, as you said, you're selfish, but you want it to be right. You know, lining up that mark on the wall with the mark in this picture, and having, you know, placing him where this wall is and where the doorway is, and is it still there, and has it been covered? Talk to me about why go to all of this trouble other than you just want to know. Well, it has to be more, Billy, than you just want to know.
It gives some credence, solidity to the story would be one thing. You know, if you go to a place and go, well, Elvis was here, and you don't have a picture lineup or something like that, it's like, meh. But if I can show you, hey, he was right here, there's that, this is what it looks like now, this is what it looked like then, this is why he was here, this is what he was doing, this, you know, and then you tell a story around it. Yeah. I don't know, it brings it to life for me. And so that's what I'm trying to bring the stories to life. And I think when you can visually, I'm a visual person, so when you can visually see things, it gives the story life. You know, you'll see me go to places and go, hey, Elvis stayed in this hotel. I don't have any photos of him here, but he definitely was here. That story does not give me the same feeling that a story that I have a photo with gives me, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it sure does. Well, you know, it's funny because there was a long rumored that Elvis performed here in New Jersey at a place called the Dance Set. Now, unless you're from South Jersey, you don't have any idea what the Dance Set is. And for years and years and years, it had been speculated, without proof, by the way. About 3 years ago, someone finally came forward with proof. And they dug and dug and dug and found someone who actually had a picture of Elvis performing on the stage at this little building called the Dance Set. It may be on a good night, you could squeeze 100 people in this building. But they actually saved the stage from this building. And as they did in Nashville with the Grand Ole Opry, they cut a circle out where, you know, famous acts had stood. It's now that circle, that large circle, is now a wall ornament in the police station in Oakland, New Jersey, where this Dance Set was located. A little bit of Elvis trivia that you may not have known about.
No, I'm not familiar with that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I haven't seen, you know. But you mentioned that I've been to Germany and filmed. Elvis was in the army in Germany, so I filmed all over Germany. I filmed in Paris, where Elvis was. He took leave a couple of times while he was in the army and went to Paris. I filmed all over the Netherlands, which some people would call Holland, which is where the colonel, his manager, was from. I've been to the spot where the colonel was born in Breda, Holland. I actually was able to do a lineup, believe it or not. There's photographs of the back of where his house was there, just kind of a photo. They were not taking a photo of his house. They just happened to take a photo of this line of houses. I know which one was his. And they really were not really houses. They were almost shanties. But what's really interesting is there was a building that you could see in the background that is still there, still standing. It's actually a casino now in Breda, Holland.
Interesting.
So I was able to go there and film. He got on a cruise ship in Rotterdam.
Yeah.
He worked there and actually got on the cruise ship twice. So I was able to talk to locals, figure out where he would have gotten on the ship yet and come to America. They came the first time, they sent him back because he didn't have his papers, his signed parents. The second time when he went back, he jumped ship and got in, still didn't have the stuff. So I filmed all that stuff. I filmed all over the United States. I haven't even started Texas yet. Texas will take a month every day for a month, if not longer.
Brother, that's a project in itself.
It is.
You're going to need a film crew for that.
Yeah, big time. I filmed Kentucky, North Carolina. I filmed Tennessee, of course, Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Las Vegas.
What's been your
LA.
most difficult film so far? Which one gave you the hardest time, either legally or paperwork, or somebody said, go away, shut your camera off? What's been, you come across with a lot of goodwill, like a nice guy. And my sense tells me that you are a really nice guy. But there are some people who just don't like anybody, and don't want anybody filming on their property.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who don't like Elvis.
Yeah. I mean, I really haven't encountered anybody that was anti-Elvis in my filming. Now, there's a guy that there's a fringe of people that believe that there's a preacher just outside of Little Rock, Arkansas.
Pastor Robert Joyce.
Yeah, Bob Joyce.
I know who he is. I know it well.
People think that Bob is Elvis.
Not even close, brother.
No, he's not. He can't be Elvis. He's not old enough for one thing, and Elvis died August 16th, 1977, and I believe that. But I thought that I was doing the Elvis world a favor, if you will, to just go to Bob Joyce and just go, hey, you're not Elvis. Just say now that you're not Elvis, and we'll all move on with our life. It's just that simple.
Sure.
And the people that believed that Bob Joyce is Elvis got mad. And what did you think he was going to tell you that he was Elvis? Well, no, I expected him to tell me that he wasn't because Elvis died. That's what I expected, which is what he did. So it's time to move on. But I got mixed reactions from it. Bob, when I would I was trying to be. I'll tell you what the rub is. He's a pastor.
Sure.
So I was trying to set this baby to rest and not roll Bob Joyce under the bus as a pastor. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I got to tell you, and at the risk of interrupting you, I have to tell you that whole thing rubbed me the wrong way from the get-go. I thought to myself, somebody is going to take a shred of coincidence or, a look-alike element or an angle. And, in the world of pro wrestling, we call these angles. By the way, Billy, I've only done two things in my whole life. I've been a wrestling promoter and a recording engineer, and that's all I've ever done. And largely, I worked in music my entire life. But when I saw this, a guy on YouTube named Michael Skutnik or something to that effect,
yes,
putting up these videos, these Bob Joyce videos, I was really irate. I didn't take well to it, and I let him know that too. Bob Joyce is a guy who, does he have a decent voice for, I guess so. Sure. Why not? Anybody that can carry a tune can probably sing a song. Does he look like Elvis? I don't think so. Not even remotely. Not especially, probably you would know being close up to him. Probably not.
He does not.
But the one thing that really irks me is that these people who try, and I would love to have your opinion and your insight on it, these people who try to perpetrate the notion for whatever gain, I don't know, and that what irks me, is that the notion that Elvis is still alive for for some reason. I mean, he'd be 85, 86 years old now. It's like he's not coming back wearing a white jumpsuit, okay?
Right. Well, I'll say this about that. Let's go back to Bob for just a moment, and then we'll go to that. So,
absolutely.
When you asked me about somebody being resistant to me filming him, you know, I show up at the man's house, I knock on their door, and his wife was nice enough to say, okay, let me go get him. He was asleep. He came out and spoke with me. And every time I would point my camera at him, I try to, if you listen to my videos, there's times when I'll have a little scuffle with somebody, but somehow I'm able to on some level make friends with them, if you will, or there's a better way to say it than that, and it's not coming to me, but I'm trying to relate to somebody. That's the way. For instance, I had an issue with a guard at Graceland one time, and my immediate reaction was negative, but then I was able to relate with him, and the next thing you know, he's trying to help me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Bob Joyce, I was trying to relate to him, and I filmed his face, but he asked me not to film his face. When I would point, he'd go, look, I've got plenty of videos on YouTube.
Well, I was going to say, it doesn't make sense.
Just put the video out like it was, but I didn't. I was trying to be respectful.
Sure.
But
does it make any sense to you? Here's what I don't understand. When I watched that, when I watched that bothered me. That really bothered me on many levels. That here's a guy whose face is everywhere. Everywhere on YouTube. You type in Elvis Bob Joyce, Elvis is alive, he pops up all over the place, right? And he's got a son that sings as supposedly an Elvis impersonator too, or whatever you want to call them.
And look, they can sound similar to Elvis, but so can thousands of other people. There's people that do that for a living. So clearly, I know something about his voice that a lot of people can do.
There are more than 200,000 people worldwide right now making their living as Elvis impersonators. Brother, I know 4 of the best in the world. I know 4 of the best. Dean Z, Doug Church, Johnny Fortuno, and a guy named Jim Jim Huffsacker.
Mm-hmm.
And he's right up there with guys like, and they're all up there with guys like Bill Cherry and who's the other guy? The hell is his name? Oh, Chris.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, Chris O'Connell and people like. There's just so many of them.
Yeah, Sean Clark.
It bothers me that here's a guy whose face is everywhere and had a problem with you filming his face. I mean, I heard that video.
In hindsight, after I left and trying to compute what just happened, because I didn't, I had a lot of people like, how dare you go to somebody's house knocking? Well, how else am I going, ask him if he's, that's no different than. If you watch 48 Hours, they bust up on people's front doors all the time.
If you don't ask, you don't know.
Yeah, so I honestly thought that I was going to have a conversation with him and him just go, I pastor a church, I'm not Elvis. But he was resistant to it. So on some level, clearly, he wants to continue down that road. Okay, so let's just say that.
Yeah. And that bothers me.
And that bothers me too, because he had an opportunity right then to set the record straight and didn't. So he is benefiting, but at the same time, he's a pastor. So sure. I'm not going to, I'm going to be respectful, even though if it was just a guy that was not a pastor for a living, you would have seen a much different video. Let's just say
sure, that. Absolutely.
Okay. So now let's fast forward to Elvis being dead or alive.
Right.
That thing that is inside most people, where they have this unction for someone that is not here to be here, is their unction, the need for their relationship with Christ, is what I believe. Okay.
Absolutely.
So I think some people have put Elvis in their psyche in that position. And look, I would love for Elvis to be alive. in fact, I can make a video today and convince you that he's alive. I could also make a video today and convince you he's dead if I wanted to go down those roads. I don't do that. That's not what I do. I don't do sensationalized type videos. And there was a period of time where I believed that there was a possibility. Okay, so now I wouldn't call myself an insider. I'm not hanging out at Graceland with Priscilla, but I know a lot of the extended family very well. I've become friends with Billy and Joe Smith. Billy washed Elvis's hair that morning and played racquetball with him. There was nobody in the world closer to Elvis Presley than Billy Smith.
Sure.
And I know Billy and his family very, very well. They're friends of mine. And I believe that if Elvis was alive, that they would know it. And I believe that they would.
And do you think they would tell it?
On some level. Now, I did an interview with Louise Smith, which was Gene Smith, Elvis's first cousin's wife.
Sure.
And there's a video out there with Gene where Gene says that it was not Elvis in the casket. You've probably seen the video. He talks about Elvis's hands not having the calluses on them and that kind of stuff. He speaks of that. So in my video, I did the whole interview with Louise. I got to the very end and I said, Louise, I may not use this, but I have one more question that I'd like to ask. And if you have a problem with this question when we're done and you tell me not to use this video, I won't use it. This footage. And she said, okay. So I said, what I just said to you, Gene, your husband made a video and said that he did not think that was Elvis in the casket.
Yeah.
What do you say? And she said, I don't think it was either. And I saw the same thing that Gene saw, but there's other reasons why I believe that. And I said, she said, the way she put it was other things happened.
Yeah.
That would make us believe that. So I tried to get her to talk about what those other things were.
Yeah.
She would not. When I was done, shut the camera off. I said, please, the camera's not rolling. Would you tell me those things, those other things? She said, no, I will not.
Right.
And she passed away maybe 5 months later, 6 months later.
Yeah.
Not very long. And so that, there's things that pop up that make you go, is it a possibility? But Elvis's his health was really, really, really bad. In fact, I've got a friend that I would love for you to have her on your show. Her name is Sally Hodell. She just released her book. It's called Destined to Die Young. And she makes a case that, the sad part
the woman who wrote that book?
Her name is Sally Hodell.
Sally.
Yeah, I'll put you in touch with Sally. It's a very interesting book.
Yeah, please do. Because one of the things that we've been doing a lot lately are authors. In fact, Thursday night of this week, I have 2 women coming on who wrote a book you might be interested in, called The Man in the Shadows. It's about the death and replacement of Paul McCartney. Another conspiracy book, but one that's deeply, steeped in factual information. Unlike the Elvis crowd, who has yet almost 46 years later, however long it's been, who has yet to produce one shred of substantive evidence or substantial literature to support it.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
No. But what I was going to say is, Sally, the thing is there's a legacy issue with Elvis, and that legacy issue is this. I know that Elvis was not a drug addict that was strung out. He wasn't a caricature of himself. He wasn't this guy strung out on cocaine or heroin or something like that. This was a guy that had some real health issues. So Sally makes a case, and the reason she wrote the book was for the younger generation, that their vision of Elvis is this caricature that was this drug guy. Okay, and that's absolutely not a fact.
And I have a problem with that on a lot of levels. I saw Elvis 7 weeks before he passed. I saw him at the Philadelphia Spectrum. and met him backstage first. And one of the things that was glaringly obvious was his lack of concentration, the fact that he could not move. He could bear. I mean, he could bear. When I tell you, Billy, he could barely take a step without wincing in pain. He seemed like he was clearly and obviously in some kind of pain. He had to have trouble getting up the steps for the stage, and had to have trouble. I mean, had to have help getting down the steps from the stage, and needed assistance to get into the car once backstage. It was it really was very sad. But the people there, 25,000 people screaming at the top of their lungs, loved it. They got to see their idol. It was the last time they got to see their idol. And he was just, beautiful voice, but just didn't want to be there. That's what was clear and obvious to me. He just didn't want to be there. And he was going through the motions.
Well, Sally makes the case that some people would have you believe that he was taking drugs, that he was like that because he was taking drugs. She makes the case that he was taking drugs because he was like that. There's in the body, you have 11 major systems. He had some sort of disease in 9 of those, which was hereditary. Mm-hmm. And I won't tell you her book. I'll let her tell you when you.
Oh yeah, please do. Sure.
But she makes a very good case. That's the reason that Gladys passed young. They had some hereditary issues that she could explain to you. He had some. Basically, he was going to die young no matter what, and he was taking the drugs to try to survive. Basically, to try to beat Elvis Presley for everybody.
Yeah.
He wasn't taking the drugs because he just wanted to take drugs. He was trying to survive. He was in so much pain and so much disease.
Yeah, if he wanted to take drugs for the sake of taking drugs, like any other rock star, he had the means, motive, and opportunity to do so. I will tell you what I observed personally was a guy in pain. A guy clearly looked like he was sick and in need of medicine to get better. That's what I saw. I didn't see a guy strung out on drugs, taking to a stage, mumbling his. And he, by the way, he was sharp as a tack once he hit that stage, and he gave people a show. But I have this feeling he'd have rather been home nursing his body. Quite frankly, he didn't look healthy. No other way to say it. He did not look healthy. And I hope he's in a better place now. So I will look forward to meeting Sally. I'd love to have her on the show. If you send me her info on Facebook, or
certainly,
I appreciate that. So what is next for the spa guy?
Well, I have a project that I'm working on in Memphis. I can't divulge it yet because we're not ready to. Once I tell people about it, I think we'll have a flood of people. So I need to keep that to myself until it's time. But I have something that is pretty remarkable that will be happening in Memphis very soon. I'm here working on it now.
Beautiful.
I've been driving back and forth. As far as filming next, I don't have anything particular set up. I'm getting ready to film something. Once we're done, I'm going to film something here in Memphis. An artifact that we thought was gone that somebody has that was from a place here in Memphis that got torn down. And so I'm glad that artifact is still there. But I'm in this position that I'm in where we're filming, telling these stories. People reach out to me and go, "Hey man, I've seen this, I've seen that." Some of them pan out, some of them are nothing, but some of them lead you to some pretty incredible things. Until this project is complete, I really don't have anything else. I don't have any plans to go film anything unless they're going to tear the house down in in Palm Springs. I'll
Right.
fly out there specifically to film that
Yeah.
before it's destroyed. I tried to take Dick Grove there in 2019 when I was there. We had it set up. We had a date set that we were going to drive him there because that's where Dick Grove met Elvis at. He was his head of security. Sadly,
Right.
Dick passed last year in 2020.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I
he
never got
passed
to
right
take
after
him
his
there.
daughter's wedding, correct?
Well, it was not his daughter. It was a real good friend of his got married. Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
Rick Cross. And Rick actually has a YouTube channel out now. He started doing things. Now, Rick does, he doesn't go out and film and do things like I do. He's he's a record collector and stuff. So he shows you his collection and that kind of stuff.
Beautiful.
Very interesting stuff. So, and he's been around a long time in the Elvis world. He was really tight with Dick Grove and is well known. He's in some of my videos where we film inside the Hilton. You know, when we did that 6-part series, he's one of those guys. So he's very knowledgeable. And he knows a lot of people in the Elvis world. He's been around.
Oh, God. I tell you what, we had one of the biggest up in this area. This guy, you might have come across him or may have heard of him during your time. He's passed now. He's with the Lord. But his name was Jimmy Curtin. I don't know.
I'm not familiar with him.
Jimmy Curtin was an Elvis tribute artist long before there were Elvis tribute artists. In fact, met Elvis, and Elvis personally hand-delivered him, and I know because I've seen the pictures, hand-delivered him the Starburst jumpsuit and the Peacock jumpsuit. I know because I held them in my hand. Well, in my arms, I should say. And they were very heavy, quite frankly.
Yes, they are.
Jimmy Curtin was an Elvis super fan and collector who actually got to meet Elvis and knew him on that other level. But if you're ever interested in doing a story about this guy Jimmy Curtin, I'm the hookup for that.
I'll have to come to Jersey and do some of those stories. I used to go every January. They have the Pool and Spa show in Atlantic City. So we would go stay in Atlantic City and take the train or drive to New York, spend a few days, spend some days in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Edison fan. I filmed Orange, New Jersey, and I filmed in Menlo Park and all the Edison stuff up there.
Oh, God, sure.
And so I filmed some things in Jersey and New York.
Yeah, I'm not far from Lakehurst where the Hindenburg blew up.
Wow, I need to go film that. I've never seen anybody do that story.
Yeah, that's the Lakehurst Naval Air Station.
Can you get on the air station where it blew up?
You actually can, yes.
Okay.
You actually can. They do tours. They do private tours and public tours. If you call the Navy liaison, they can arrange for a film crew to be given access and permission. I think there are certain things they won't let you film, but the airfield itself, where the Hindenburg blew, that's all outside.
Yeah,
you can actually film that from the street.
Yeah,
because you drive right past.
Just go do a picture lineup. You know, if the towers or any of it is still there.
Oh, it's all there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like preserved in time.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it.
It really is remarkable.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, Billy Stallings, the spa guy, I am honored to have had you on the show. I must have you back at some point, and I would love to just pick your brain some more. I really would. I really would. I love that. This is up my alley. By the way, I'm going to show you something. You inspired something, by the way.
Yes, sir.
People who watch the show know that you normally see me wearing this.
Yes.
Wrestling with the Future, our t-shirt. 3 for $25, by the way. But my granddaughter, because you were going to be on, made this.
That's cool.
That's Elvis's silhouette.
Yeah.
In honor of your appearance tonight. So thank you for inspiring my granddaughter to make me a t-shirt.
That's very cool.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And I will have you back just as soon as we can arrange to have you back. And give my best to everybody in Memphis. Tell Angie Marchese I said hi. If you get to talk to Angie.
Yeah, I saw her the other day at the birthday celebration.
Tell her she owes me a phone call.
Yeah. And you know, they just put out my video with the bicycle. Have you seen that video? The
I've
Gates
not
Great
yet.
Slam video? Yeah.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
yet. Yeah, I've got so much going on. We just hit 5 million downloads. We are on 147 radio stations worldwide. Our YouTube channel is fairly new, so we're getting a little bit of steam there. But our big audience is in the car,
Yeah.
at work. You know, people on the go. That's us.
Yeah.
We're everywhere.
Well, to find me, you go Spa Guy, SPA space GUI and Elvis. I have 400 videos on YouTube, and that's how.
Yeah, I know. I watch every one of them.
Yeah. I put
Brother,
out 2
thank you
videos
so
a week
much.
every week and have for years.
I appreciate it. I'm gonna tell you what. Thank you so much for joining us, and please come back again. Billy Stallings, the Spa Guy.
Appreciate you, my friend.
Take care, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.